Continuing with controllers and keys, we're going to look at adding new keys using the add new key function, and then setting the value of a key using the value property of the key. So in this line, we add a key, we capture that key in a variable, hk in this case, and then we set the value property of that hk variable. Here we have a helix and a box. We haven't done anything with them yet. You can see if you look down here, there's no animation here at all. So nothing has been done to these. And that, in fact, is going to create a problem with this script. I'll just deselect both of those, but let's try running this script. No add new key function for undefined. So it's telling us that this controller, this Helix 01 height controller, doesn't exist. Since we haven't animated this at all, it doesn't have a height controller. Now, if I were to animate this manually, using the auto key function and then changing the height, it would create that controller. But instead, I'm going to create it using Max script. And here's how I'll do it. If helix01.height.controller equals undefined, do helix01 height controller equals Bezier float parentheses. So this is the key right here. This is a constructor. Just like a sphere constructor or a box constructor, this constructs a Bezier float controller. So since there is no such controller, it is undefined, and it will get created when we run this. So let's try this now. And you can see that those keys got created. And if I run this, let me just stop this. I'll Alt-W to enlarge that a bit. Minimize this, get out of this. And let's run that again. So this is reflecting that sine function that I used. The sine function goes up, back down to 0, down, and then back to 0 again. And that, by the way, this is a little bit of an aside, but for those who are interested, that's why I use this 3.6 here, because we're going from 1 to 100, but the sine function makes a full sine wave in 360 degrees. So by multiplying by 3.6 over this period from 1 to 100, we get a full sine wave, and that's what gives that movement that nice, smooth, complete up and down movement. And then I just multiplied by 20 to make the movement larger, to make it move up more and down more so that we could see it better. Now, if I wanted the box to do the same thing, of course I could just repeat this same code for the box. But a more efficient way of doing it is just to point the box height controller at the helix height controller. Now, let's just select the box here. Bring up the listener. And let's just see if this box even has a height controller at this point. I'll hit Control D, Control V to copy that in, and hit the Enter key on the number pad. So it's undefined. There is no height controller on this right now. But this statement will actually create this controller property and point it at this controller. So right now, this has all these keys. This has no keys. I'm just going to delete those keys on the helix and run this code. Now, the box has the same keys, and if I run this, they both make the same movement. And the controller on the box is an instance of the controller on the helix. So any changes I would make to this controller on the helix would be reflected in the box. Now, one other thing I'd like to do is to have this movement continue out of this range. So let's go rescale our time. I'll just set it to 1,000 here. Okay. Now right now, this is going to 1,000. If I play this, it moves up to 100, and then after 100, there's no animation. So I'm going to use this to set the out of range behavior for the helix height controller to ping pong. Once again, I'll go here. I'll just delete animation. You notice, by the way, that that affected both of them, even though only the helix was selected. And now I'll run this. And now when I play this, even outside that range, they both continue going back and forth. And again, that's due to this set after ORT, the out of range behavior. It set that behavior on the helix, and that was reflected in the box because of this statement, which makes the box height controller follow what's ever happening in the helix height controller. And that concludes this movie on controllers and keys.